This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We will dedicate our remarks now to Refuah Shalema for Miriam Liba Bas Devora. She should have a Refuah Shalema B'Sech Shecher Yisrael. There is a incredible Balaturim right in the beginning of Parshas Mishpotim. Ve'ela Mishpotim asher tosim lifnehem. These are the laws which you should place before them. So says the Balaturim, Ha-Mishpotim is an abbreviation, a mnemonic for Hadayin Mitzuva Sheyase Pshara Terem Yase Mishpat. The judge is instructed to try to make a compromise before he makes a legal ruling. Again, Eila Ha-Mishpotim. Ha-Mishpotim is, Hey is Hadayin, Mem is Mitzuva, Shin is Sheyase, Pei is Pshara, a compromise, Tes is Terem, Yud is Yase, Mem is Mishpat. Hadayin Mitzuva Sheyase Pshara, the judge is instructed by the Torah to try to make a compromise before he rules strict justice. And that's what the Baal Turim says. The word asher is im shneihem roitzim. If they're both agreeable to go to this kind of arbitration, the Rebbeinu Shalom says that's preferable. Now that's a big novelty. Because if you would ask me, a compromise is not emes. Not emes. If I have a quarrel with, let's say, Dr. Moskowitz, one of us is right, one of us is wrong. So justice will determine the emes. A compromise is really not truth. It makes both sides feel happy, but l'chayra we would say first choice is emes. Chaysama yishal HaKadosh Baruch emes. The seal of Hashem is emes. We would think that you don't go to a compromise. Let's hear what the Torah says. Torah is an absolute law. So we see from here, not that way. It's a mistake. Rambam says, Shekol HaTorah kula nitna la'asa shalom b'olam. The whole Torah was given to make shalom in the world. Shenem adrachei darchei nayim. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, sweetness. All its paths are paths of peace. And what does it say that a Talmid Chacham is marbe in the world? It doesn't say Talmidei Chacham are marbe emes in the world. It says Talmidei Chacham are marbe shalom in the world. When you come to a compromise, you achieve shalom. It's a very big novelty, this novelty. Now, I know that whenever I write my articles, and especially when I write my svarim, the editors are allergic to starting a sentence with the word end. They tell you don't start a sentence with the word end. It's a unwritten law that you don't do that, right? Paul is nodding. You learned that in school, right? You don't start a sentence. You surely don't start a paragraph. You surely don't start a chapter with the word end. And yet, the parsha starts out, Ve'ela Mishpotim. And these are the laws, right? So it connects it to several items that are made at the end of the parsha. Because there are psukim that are linked with what we call the Vav HaChibur. So it says the last pasuk is a V'lo Yisala b'malos. You shouldn't go up on steps. So that connects it to the pasuk before. The pasuk before is V'im Mizbach Avonim Tasali. If you make a stone, an altar of stone, so there's a law. When you make an altar of stone, you cannot cut it with a metal instrument. Lo sivna esen gozes. You can't use cut stone. Why? Because you wave your sword over it. v'techaleleha, and you profane it. You can't use, so we know that from twilight of the 6 days of creation, there was a special creature called the shamir, and that cut through without using metal implements. Now, we know that Hashem does not like to make miracles if he could avoid it. That's why there is on top of the Beis Hamikdash spikes called kalya orev. On the roof of the Beis Hamikdash were spikes called kalya orev. Why? They chased away, kalya means to get rid of, they got rid of the crows. Why? Because otherwise the crows would land on the roof and they would defecate. And that would be a big disgrace to the Beis Hamikdash. So we put on top of it, it's a very odd thing, on this extremely fancy building, they had crow chasers. So that's odd. It says that the greatest Talmud was Yonasan ben Uziel, a oifapareach, a bird that flew over the head of Yonasan ben Uziel was burnt by fire. On top of the head of Yonasan ben Uziel was a no-fly zone. But the Beis Hamikdash needed crow chasers. Why? The Beis Hamikdash couldn't have a no-fly zone, the house of the Shekhinah. But Hashem likes to do things naturally. He doesn't like to make miracles if not necessary. Yet here in the construction of the Mizbeach, he mandated a miraculous creature. Why? So says Rashi in his second shot, and this is a way of life. Says Rashi in his second shot, because the Mizbeach is a peacemaker. It makes peace between us and our Father in heaven. The person did a sin. He brought a carbon. Here's a person, he had sinful thoughts. He brought a carbon isla. One of the reasons why a burnt offering was offered is for sinful thoughts. So here's a person, he had sinful thoughts. He brought a carbon isla and it atoned. And it made peace between us and our Father in heaven. So says Rashi, a peacemaker, it's not right to wield weapons of violence against a sword. A metal is a weapon of violence. It's not right to wield it against the peacemaker. And then Rashi says a kal v'chomer. This is not Rashi's own kal v'chomer. It would be exciting even if it was his own, but it's not. It's from the Mechilta. Mechilta says a kal v'chomer. Ma Dr. Mizbeach, which is made out of stone, that cannot see, that cannot talk, that does not feel. Yet because it makes peace between us and our Father in heaven, it's protected from any weapons of violence. Then us, who can think and who can speak and who can feel, if we work on making peace between our fellow man, then surely we will not be affected by metal. That means that if a person pursues peace, now what does it mean to pursue peace? It means to look away, to not make a big deal about something. It means to swallow your pride. It means to give the person the benefit of the doubt that they're just having a hard day and it's not really you. It means, is it worth fighting about this issue? Let him have it. If a person pursues peace, then the metal scalpel won't invade his body. The root canal drill won't enter his mouth. The screeching metal of a car accident won't come near him. That's the benefit of pursuit of peace. And I believe that that's the vav of Eila Mishpotim, because that's the lesson of Hadayin Mitzvah Sheyasa Pshara Terem Yasa Mishpat. That's pursuit of peace. We learned in the Daf a few weeks ago that there was a man who was a huge Talmid Chacham. Huge Talmid Chacham. His name was Gniva. They wanted to stand up for him, and they said, we don't stand up for him. Because Palgahu, he's a quarrelsome person. A quarrelsome person you don't stand up for. Why are you standing up for someone? Because they absorb the Torah. But if a person fights, if a person doesn't get along with people, then that person did not absorb their Torah. They might have Torah, but they're like a chamor noisei svarim, a donkey carrying svarim. They're like a glorified svarim shack. We don't stand up for a svarim shack. We don't stand up for a donkey carting an art scroll shas. We don't stand up for a car that has in its trunk, a choshev shas. We don't do that. We stand up for somebody. In essence, what this means is who's a ben Torah? A ben Torah is somebody who's a person of peace. Shekol ha-Torah kula nitna la'asa shalom ba'ila. Now, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, what's the litmus test to know if Hashem is pleased with you? Now, we all want to know, what's our report card from the Eibishter? How are we doing with the Rebbeinu Shalom? A B minus? An A minus? A C? An A plus? What's our report card from the Eibishter? Wouldn't we want to know that? So there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says that there's a litmus test. There's a barometer to know how you're doing with the Eibishter. Kol sheruach habriyas noichei menu, ruach hamokim noichei menu. Now, when I learn Pirkei Avos, the way I learn Pirkei Avos to learn, to get the maximum out of it, is I think, how would I have written it? You know what the words ruach hamokim noichei menu means? The spirit of Hashem is at ease with him. I would say, if people like me, that's a sign that God likes me. That's what I would have written. But the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says, Kol sheruach habriyas noichei menu. If people are at ease with me, that means they're not walking on eggshells around me. There's certain people that you're walking around eggshells. The person is going to get upset. You have to walk around eggshells. A person that's so rigid, so excitable, such a captain, Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm not pleased with such a person. If a person is easygoing, if a person is tolerant, the Rebbeinu Shalom likes such a person. What a litmus test we all have to ask ourselves. What kind of report card would we get? Think about it. If we need about tefillah for Yom Nera, Shmuel says he can't come from Firwan. We need about tefillah. So who do we look for to daven for the Yom? So you'll say, what do you mean, Rabbi Weiss? Nosach, a nice voice, a powerful voice, should know how to sing. Those are all extras. What we look for when we want an ambassador to pray for us, when we're begging for our lives and the lives of our loved ones, we look for somebody that's ma'uriv im abriyas. He mixes well with people. That's the premium. That's something we all have to work on. I'll tell you something else. There's a spectacular Karenayra. What time is Marav? Does anybody know? There's a spectacular Karenayra. Thank you, Aaron. Spectacular Karenayra. The Karenayra is a Masechtas Tanis. There the Gemara asks different sages, Bameh harachta yomim. In what merit did you live long? So example, they asked Rav Adabar Ava, in what merit did you live such a long, ripe age, especially in the Middle Ages? People didn't live so long. There was no antibiotics. Meir Shapiro passed away in his 50s because of a strep throat. There were no antibiotics. And people didn't live long. When a person lived a ripe old age, they asked him, "B'mei arachta yamim." So they asked Rav Ada bar Avam, "B'mei arachta yamim." He said, "La'olam lo ikparati b'seif beis." I never showed that I minded in my house. I was easygoing in my house. I remember I asked Mr. Leifer, Zolzain Gesund, he's now over 100, in his 66th year of marriage. And if you remember Mr. and Mrs. Leifer, they were like a sweetheart couple, walking together so beautifully. It was beautiful to see. So I asked him, what's the secret? I talk a lot about Shalom Bayis. You have a lot of experience. He said one word: flexibility. That's the secret. That's what he told me. Flexibility. So, I never showed that I was really mind. The cholent wasn't saucy. I didn't lose it. The air conditioner forgot to be put on. I didn't go ballistic. He asked another one. I was easy going with my money. They asked another one. I never brought a taina against someone on the bed. I always forgave people before I went on my bed. They asked somebody else. I looked away. I didn't demand what was rightfully mine. And the Gemara goes on with many such examples, and the Keren Iris says he did an analysis. And he said the common denominator of all these things is a gentle, easygoing demeanor. A gentle, easygoing personality. Says the Keren Iris, why does that lead to Arichas Yama? Why does that lead to Arichas Yama? You ask Dr. Moskowitz, he would do a graph of all of his patients, and he'll find that they're all gentle people. And that's the way. So why is that the way to longevity? Listen to what the Keren Ira says. Says the Keren Ira that our neshama is vital for us to live. If the neshama leaves, then the person is in the Beis HaChaim. Deader, and deadest. That's it. Now the neshama the neshama is blown into our nostrils. It's a chelik elikam amal, and the neshama is homesick. He's homesick for the Kisei HaKavod. He's homesick for Shemayim. He's stuck here in the morass of this world. He's homesick. Wants to leave. We don't want the neshama to leave. He leaves. We're in dead trouble. Says the Keren Ira, what do you have to do to keep the neshama here? What do you have to do? He says you have to make your body a heavenly place. It's not just heavenly coffee, Rabbi said. You have to make your body a heavenly place. How do you make your body heavenly? Says the Keren Ira, simple. Heaven is a place of peace. When you make your body a peaceful place, then the neshama says, you know what? I could stay here 120 years. It's okay. I feel comfortable here. I'm not in a rush. But if a body is, the neshama says, get me out of here. Can't take it. Can't take it. Says the Keren Ira, that's why we find that all the things mentioned in Masechtas Tanas, that Amarach Yom Zayin is a gentle, pleasant demeanor. And that's what it says in the Taisus HaRosh. It says that Noach had a lot of titles. Noach was a tzaddik, a tomim, eselikim hisalach Noach. But says the Taisus HaRosh, the top accolade was not tzaddik, was not tomim, was not walking with God. Eila told us Noach. He was an ish naicha, A gentle, easygoing person. Not a rigid person, not a demanding person. Sometimes I see somebody, if there isn't a meaning right away, they want to run. They're running. They're running. Such a rigidness. I'm not talking about somebody has to go to work, he has to make the bus. What can he do? He's bound to his job, he can't help it. But there's some people just by nature, they're rigid. That's no good. The Shama doesn't like it. Shama says, I miss the heavenly place where there isn't such a stress, where there isn't such tightness. Says the Keren Ayra, train ourselves to be gentle, easygoing, flexible, tolerant. That merit, we should all have Arichas Yamim L'Shana.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.